agree, Ethan. Honestly, there, especially with all the draft picks that we have traded for the future, with all the draft picks we don't have, it's really tough to just let young pieces go. So I definitely agree with you on that. Thanks again for coming on, man. Ernest here from Miami
Sure.
Heat Talk. Got a two-parter for you. Promise it won't be long. You mentioned it a tiny bit earlier, so I'm sure like after the Heat won this game in game two, Heat fans are all on the edge of their seats right now. They want to know, is it possible that Terry Rozier could come back game three or game four? And then the second part kind of
Mhm.
leads to what you were mentioning earlier about Jimmy no longer being a 1A. Right now, we're sitting on clown line, but we know what realistic is. We know the Boston Celtics are most likely going to win this series. But let's say if the Heat can make it competitive, take it 6-7 games, maybe even shock the world. Ethan, do you still feel that the Miami Heat may make some overhaul changes this offseason? Or are we going to give the NBA Heat fans their favorite three words? Run it back. What do you think, my man?
I mean, I don't think that they go into any offseason saying we have to run it back. Like I understand that that's this. I like their team. I like our team. You know, we run it back. They're always exploring. They just have a value. That's it. Like they're not gonna make a Minnesota for Gobert trade. Like they are not gonna trade 5 first-round picks to go get somebody. That's just not the way that they operate. They and the other thing I'll say this about first-round picks. You talk about they don't have all of them going forward. That's true. Look at what they've done with some of these first round picks recently. Okay. They got Bam Adebayo, who's now a two-time Olympic US team member. Okay. Well, how many time All-Star at pick 14? They got Tyler Herro, who, for all the criticisms of him, has been a top 6 productive player in his draft class. They got him at number 13. They got Jaquez, where they got him. What was it, 18? They got Jovic, where they got him, and he looks like a potential star. So if we're talking about their last 5 or 6 drafts where they've actually had a pick, they made one mistake. They took Precious over Maxi. Okay. And I think a lot of that had to do with the fact that Maxi was clutch, honestly. Um, but like, I mean, so what are we talking about? Like, no team in the league really has a record like that of late, of using, you know, mid to sort of lower mid first round picks and getting all-star potential people. So I just, it, to me, this idea of just pitching the picks, I mean, it's only if you really think like you have to do something desperate for Jimmy. But I think the counter is going to be, okay, well, is Jimmy really in a position that we should do that for him? Now, I understand what he's accomplished for the organization, and Pat wants to take care of him. But I think Jimmy will be okay if they take care of him with money. Honestly, like and that's going to be the big issue going forward, is because I've heard there's been some discussions about this behind the scenes, and I'm not exactly sure this is going to play out quite the way Jimmy wants. Like that, if Jimmy wants a 2-year max extension, I don't know that the Heat are going to go there. It might be a 1-year max extension, and so that's really the question here going forward. And I still think that regardless of what happens in the postseason, Tyler is the piece that likely gets moved because it's always the third guy. That's always how they've operated. That's always the player that everybody else asks for. And so if Heat fans who are not big Tyler fans, you know, want to be happy about something, he probably increased his trade value a little bit last night. And I give him credit for the way that he stepped up, considering all the circumstances and all the noise that he heard after that last game. So, but that's where it's at. I don't think they're going to. We need to blow it up. I think that there have been times, and they've talked to me about this, like the end of the Knicks run, the Heat Knicks run in the late '90s into the year 2000. They walked off the court after losing the Knicks 3 straight years as the higher seed, and knew we need to make changes. Okay, and so that's kind of where it's at. So they knew that they had to make changes, and they ended up making changes, and then of course Zoe got sick, and so the changes didn't really operate the way that they wanted to. I think they know they need to make moves around this core, but I don't think they're going to do anything desperate.